So since February 2022, I've not looked at porn on a porn site, but I have looked at sexual content across social media. And in this video, I'll be talking about whether you should continue to use social media on this journey of quitting porn or not. So I want to start off with a little bit of research that I've been doing recently. I've been reading the book, The Molecule of More, once again, and it's so interesting. So one study that I came across was how in the 1960s, B.F. Skinner did an experiment with some pigeons. And he basically set it up so that these pigeons would receive some food every time they pecked at a disc. And so it was pretty simple. He didn't really discover much. They would peck and they'd peck and they'd peck and they'd keep on getting food. But then what he did is he actually changed the experiment a little bit. What he did is he set it up so that the pigeons wouldn't actually get food every time they pecked. Instead, they would get food quite randomly. And what then happened is the pigeons actually ended up pecking at this disc even more than they did in the first experiment. And this is due to reward prediction error. So basically the randomness, the way in which there was a surprise element at play, led to the pigeons releasing more dopamine when they were to peck, because they wouldn't know whether they was going to get a reward or not. The sort of unexpected nature would lead to them being more excited, drive their behaviour, and so they peck more. Now, a very similar sort of situation is going on in the human brain. So there is a lot of dopamine being released when activities have a high reward prediction error. When it comes to social media and sexual content, as we know, most of social media isn't sexual content. However, there is that possibility, that anticipation of possibly finding sexual content on social media, and that's what leads to this really high reward prediction error, and that's what actually makes, in a way, social media even worse than some porn sites. That might sound really weird, but I can only really say this from my own experience. Over the last few years, as I say, I have not gone on any porn site, but I've still been getting just as high releases in dopamine as I ever had going on sites like Pornhub. So now going on TikTok, for me, releases a huge amount of dopamine because there's this really high reward prediction error. As I'm scrolling, I don't know whether I'm going to come across sexual content or not. So when it comes to whether you should use social media or not on this journey, it really depends on whether you've really viewed porn or sexual content on social media in the past or not. Certain sites for me are totally safe, using YouTube, using Facebook. I have very rarely ever found sexual content on these sort of sites. I know there is sexual content on these sites, but for me personally, it's just not somewhere I've really sought out sexual content. Whereas places like TikTok and Instagram, I know that if I go on those sites and I'm in a really sort of horny mood, and maybe I've not meditated, I haven't stuck to my process around quitting porn, then there's a chance I will seek out sexual content. And due to the way in which the algorithm works on those kind of platforms, I know it may end up sort of creating a new feed which is full of even more provocative content, which I don't actually really want to see. So ultimately, it's up to you whether you use social media or not when you're quitting porn. I think the main thing is whether you've looked at sexual content on these platforms in the past or not, how often you use these platforms, and the overall net impact of using social media on your life. For example, for me, using YouTube and Facebook actually have a positive net impact because I don't use them too often. I come on here on YouTube and post videos, and I use Facebook usually for social events and staying in touch with certain family and friends. So that works well for me. Whereas TikTok, I was posting on it a bit and maybe I'll return to it in the future. But right now, I realize I actually can't handle this platform. My brain has been wired to sort of get huge amounts of dopamine basically being released when I go on that platform. So yeah, I just have to be honest with myself, be humble, and admit, for me right now on this journey of quitting porn, TikTok probably isn't the one for me. And yeah, maybe I can go on it in the future. Maybe I need to set up a way of using it in the future where maybe I just use desktop instead of my phone, and I just have a rule for myself where I don't scroll at all, something like that perhaps. but really it's just about deciding for yourself what works for you. And if you are looking at sexual content on any social media platform and you're debating whether to continue using that platform or not, I'd probably recommend having at least a break and see what happens to your porn use. If it does decrease, if you stop seeking out sexual content, then possibly it will be best to just remove yourself from that site altogether. Weigh up the pros, weigh up the cons, and make a decision for yourself. So I hope this short video helps, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. There are a few links in the description if you want more free content.